George Balanchine hand-selected Suzanne Farrell from obscurity in a regional tryout in Ohio as a teenager. She lived the ballerina dream. She is plucked from obscurity by one of the most important men in ballet and is brought to the School of American Ballet in New York to study. Within 2 years, she has been promoted from the Corps de Ballet to be a principal dancer and is the centerpiece of some of the most important work being produced by one of the most important choreographers in the world.
With Farrell, you'd sometimes go, oh my God, did you see how she threw her pelvis? Sometimes Suzanne Farrell would throw a ground battement, a leg way high, in a tutu ballet like Symphony in C, and she'd then give a kind of pelvic oomph after it. Nobody in any ballet company ever did that except Suzanne Farrell. It was dirty dancing, and she linked it back and somehow made it part of classical dancing and made you expand your whole idea of what was clean and dirty and beautiful and classical and so on. You just had to rethink your prejudices. She was just very diverse. She was a different creature in each ballet. She was quite often different in each performance. And I think really with Margot Fonteyn, she was one of the two most profoundly musical dancers I ever saw, and she just led you deeper into different aspects of the music. She was, of course, wonderfully rhythmical, but also amazing in how she could show you the shape and length of the musical phrase, and the spirit of the music seemed to colour her whole shape and line. Farrell was quite free to completely rethink a ballet, really because of the music. She would just come on, and because she heard the music differently, she would give it a completely different accentuation. Not in every role, but in some roles. I think there were about 6 roles, which was just an adventure. You just, what's she going to do tonight?
When he worked with Suzanne, it's almost like they had one brain. He would show a step, and she would do it in her own way that was perfect for her style, and then he could move on immediately. And she was so smart. With Suzanne, she was very clearly the quickest study of all the girls in the company. He could even with her just even indicate, and was almost like they had telepathy. And it was creepy in a way, because he would just indicate something and she would do it beautifully, which pleased him, and then he could immediately go on. So it was easier for him to work with her, which I think was another one of the reasons that he loved her so much. All of his ballerinas worked very well with him. I mean, even the ones he wasn't in love with. I mean, he was always, like I said, polite and gave them things to make them look great. Violette, Melissa, everybody. So they all respected that. They knew that he was not short-shrifting them. But he was in love with Suzanne.
And, she's a teenager. He's in his 50s, I think, or 60s. Much more established. So, professional man takes interest in talented younger artist, makes him the center of not only individual artworks, but kind of his whole artistic ecosystem. Like, she is the center of it all. Like, she is like the top of the food chain. Like, she is like she is the face of New York City Ballet to the world, to America, to ballet. And then, Balanchine takes more than a professional interest in Suzanne Farrell. They become friends. They're hanging out all the time. They have dinner before and after rehearsal. They are, just fast friends. They are, he is, helping make her into, a more educated person, trying to teach her about things, just trying to invest in her. And, it's, pretty clear to her that, he is romantically interested in her.
And he was obsessed by her, which bothered the other younger girls her age coming up at the same time, because they felt they would be neglected. And in a way, they were being neglected. I won't name them, but there were 2 or 3 that I was very close to that were all principals, soloists and principals, that felt they weren't getting enough to do because he was giving Suzanne too much to do. And all I can say is he's human. He was a human. And it was tricky because it was harder on the girls in the company. It wasn't hard on me, but it was very hard on the girls in the company, the same age as Suzanne. Not the older ballerinas. Violette Verdi, Melissa Hayden.
Well, it was difficult for a lot of the company members to watch this. There was jealousy, naturally, right? You'd expect it to be that way. He would, with Suzanne Farrell, he would leave the theater with her after she danced, and he wouldn't watch the rest of us. He always used to stand in the front wing and watch us. And then when he fell in love with Suzanne, he would go to dinner with her, and nobody would be there.
One of the girls confronted him publicly and said, basically, you're giving Suzanne too much attention and weird, blah, blah. And he said, well, I have a right to love. And then she said to him, well, you should love all of us equally. His unrequited love affair with Suzanne Farrell was quite traumatic. And I was there before and after. And when she left the company, he was devastated, but he didn't want to show it to anybody because he had his pride, But with me, no. We'd go out to dinner afterwards and he'd get drunk and cry, So, so I would walk him home. He'd be a little drunk, and I'd take his arm and guide him home, make sure he got into his, apartment okay, and things like that.
And I remember having a moment. It's like, wait a minute, I have Suzanne Farrell's memoir sitting on my shelf, and I have Allegra Kent's memoir sitting on that shelf. And I literally pulled those books off the shelf and reread them. And I was like, this is what Balanchine did to these women. He used his position of power to try to exert control over their lives, period, right? This is all, ballet is woman myth is not the most beautiful thing. It's that trap of okay, you get to be the muse, but I get to be in charge.
Was he a saint? No, he wasn't a saint. He fell in love. He fell in love with some of the girls through his life. They were his muses. He fell in love. He wanted to marry them, and he married most of them. He wanted to marry them. He created great ballets for them. When they left him, or when Suzanne Farrell rejected him, he was not vindictive.
I'm not parsing what happened to Suzanne Farrell to tell Suzanne Farrell how to feel about her life. That is not my position. But I am parsing what happened to her to make sure that we don't normalize a way of behavior or a way of being in artistic organizations that makes people like my sister or my colleague kind of queasy about their daughter being involved in an art form. That's where I'm coming from, where I was like, I want to live in a world where we don't have to worry about our children getting into ballet because we're worried about what might happen to them.